In the golden age of Hollywood, two women stood on opposite sides of a moral divide. Loretta Young was the saint, the ethereal beauty who embodied Catholic purity. Carole Lombard was the screwball queen, the foul-mouthed, beloved icon of modern liberation. They were rivals in art, opposites in spirit, but they were bound together by a single man, the king, Clark Gable. Their lives became a twisted mirror of each other. Loretta Young secretly bore Clark Gable's child to protect her career and religious image. Meanwhile, Carole Lombard, Gable's lawful wife, struggled desperately with infertility before her untimely death. This story reveals the brutal reality of the studio system, where public image mattered more than personal truth. In January 1935, the production of Call of the Wild moved to Mount Baker, Washington. Conditions were harsh. At 5,000 feet, temperatures dropped to 20 degrees below zero, freezing equipment and isolating the cast. Far from the strict supervision of the Hollywood studios, the rules of conduct began to relax. Loretta Young stands in the snow, wrapped in heavy furs that smell of damp wool and cedar. She is 22. Her breath comes in sharp, visible bursts. She holds a rosary in her pocket, her fingers tracing the beads through the lining of her coat. She watches the crew struggle to set up a shot in the fading light. She is a professional, trained to smile when the director calls action, regardless of the cold biting through her boots. But her eyes keep drifting to the man standing by the fire. Clark Gable laughs. The sound carries over the wind. He is holding a tin cup of whiskey, his face unshaven, his skin ruddy from the cold and the alcohol. He looks less like a movie star and more like the oil rigger he once was. He is 34, married, and entirely unconcerned with the rules that govern Loretta's life. On this mountain, stripped of the tuxedos and the red carpets, he is a force of nature. He watches her back. He does not look away when she catches his eye. He raises the cup, a silent toast that feels more like a challenge than a greeting. The production wraps in late February. The isolation ends. The cast and crew board the train in Seattle for the long journey back to Los Angeles. The train is a steel tube cutting through the night, a moving island where the laws of the ground do not apply. The heating in the sleeper cars is turned up too high to combat the freezing darkness outside. The air inside becomes heavy, suffocating, smelling of stale tobacco smoke and celebratory gin. Loretta retreats to her compartment. It is a small space, barely wide enough for the berth. She closes the door and locks it, or thinks she locks it. She changes into her nightgown. The rhythmic clattering of the wheels on the tracks usually lulls her to sleep. But tonight the noise feels aggressive. The train sways violently as it takes the curves of the Pacific Northwest. She sits on the edge of the bed listening to the muffled sounds of the party in the club car down the hall. Laughter, shouting, the clinking of glass. A heavy hand knocks on her door. It is a demand, stripping away any pretense of politeness. Loretta freezes, recognizing the heavy, uneven footsteps she had heard in the corridor earlier. She remains silent, praying he might pass, but the handle turns. The lock fails, or perhaps in her fatigue she simply forgot to engage it. Clark Gable fills the doorway. He is still wearing his clothes from the evening, his tie loosened, the smell of whiskey rolling off him in waves. He does not smile. The charm he sells to the cameras is gone. In the narrow, dim light of the sleeper car, he looks enormous. He steps inside and closes the door behind him. The space instantly shrinks. Loretta stands up. She tries to speak, to manage the situation with the polite deflection she uses on over-eager producers. But words fail her. The air in the room changes pressure. This is not a scene from one of their romantic comedies. There is no script here. There is no director to yell, "Cut." He moves toward her. She backs up until her legs hit the edge of the berth. The train lurches, throwing them closer together. He reaches out. His hands are rough, calloused from the weeks in the wild. He does not ask. He takes. The encounter is blurred by shock, a fragmentation of sensory details, the scratch of his jacket against her skin, the smell of alcohol and sweat, the terrifying weight of him pressing her down into the mattress. She is paralyzed by a specific kind of fear, the fear of a woman who knows that screaming will destroy her life faster than silence. If she screams, the press finds out. If the press finds out, the studio destroys her. So she endures. The train rattle masks any sound. The night stretches on, measured in the rhythmic thumping of the wheels. When he finally leaves, stumbling back into the corridor, he leaves the door slightly ajar. The light from the hallway cuts across the floor like a scar. Loretta lies in the dark, pulling the sheets up to her chin. She feels the vibration of the train deep in her bones. She is still the same woman who boarded the train, the same name, the same face. But the person she was an hour ago is dead. She prays, the words forming silently in her mind, a frantic plea to a God who feels suddenly very far away. Weeks pass. The train ride becomes a memory, something she tries to push into the black water of her subconscious. She returns to the routine of Los Angeles, Mass on Sunday, fittings on Tuesday, dinner with her mother Gladys on Thursday. The studio machinery hums along. MGM is preparing her next role. She smiles for the photographers. She denies the rumors of a romance on the set, laughing them off with practiced ease. "Clark and I are just good friends," she tells a reporter from Photoplay, her voice steady. Then the sickness starts. It begins as a subtle uneasiness in the morning, a distaste for the smell of coffee. Then comes the nausea, violent and undeniable. She checks the calendar. She counts the days. She recounts them. She sits at her vanity table staring at her reflection. The face looking back is pale, the eyes wide with a dawning horror. The biological clock has stopped. In 1935, the morality clause in her contract is explicit. A star must not behave in a way that brings ridicule, scandal, or public disdain upon the studio. An unwed pregnancy is a breach of contract. It is grounds for immediate termination. But for Loretta, the threat is not just legal, it is spiritual. The church calls it a mortal sin. The world calls it a disgrace. She drives to her mother's house in the middle of the day. Gladys Royal is a woman of steel, a single mother who raised 3 daughters to be stars. She knows the industry better than Louis B. Mayer. Loretta walks into the living room and collapses. She does not need to say the words. Gladys sees the pale skin, the trembling hands. She knows. They sit in the darkened living room, the curtains drawn against the California sun. The options are laid out on the table like surgical instruments. Option 1, abortion. It is illegal, but in Hollywood it is available. The studio has doctors who fix problems. A quick procedure, a D&C for exhaustion, and Loretta can be back on set in a week. Gladys suggests it gently. It is the practical solution. It is what Joan Crawford would do. It is what Jean Harlow would do. Loretta shakes her head. Her refusal is absolute. She touches her stomach. She believes with a terrifying certainty that the life inside her is a soul. To end it would be murder. She cannot commit a mortal sin to cover up a mistake. She will not trade her soul for her career. Option 2, keep the baby. Ruin. The studio will fire her. The Legion of Decency will ban her films. She will be a pariah. Option 3, the lie. Gladys lights a cigarette. The smoke curls into the air. If Loretta will not end the pregnancy and she cannot acknowledge it, They must make the pregnancy disappear. They need a plot, a script so detailed, so impenetrable that it can fool the press, the studio, and the world. They begin to plan. The timeline is tight. Loretta can hide the bump for maybe 2 more months with corsets and loose costumes. After that, she must vanish. They need an excuse, a mysterious illness. Exhaustion. A European vacation to recover. Loretta listens to her mother spin the web. She feels a strange detachment. She is an actress, and this will be the role of her life. She will play the part of the sick girl. She will play the part of the traveler. And eventually she will play the part of the adopting mother. She places her hand flat against her stomach. The child is there, a secret growing in the dark. A child made of snow and whiskey and a train ride through the night. A child who already has a father who will never claim her. The phone rings in the hallway. It is the studio, calling about the schedule for next week. Loretta stands up. She wipes her eyes. She walks to the phone, picks up the receiver, and speaks. Her voice is clear. It is strong. It is the voice of a woman who has just decided to deceive the world to save a life. I'm here, she says. I'm ready. But she's already gone. The Loretta Young the world knows is dissolving. In her place is a conspirator carrying a time bomb beneath her heart. The execution of the lie begins in June 1935. The first step is the public withdrawal. MGM releases a statement. Loretta Young is suffering from nervous exhaustion. It is the standard euphemism for everything from alcoholism to a nervous breakdown, but the public accepts it because they have to. To sell the fiction, Loretta stages a performance in her own bedroom. She invites a reporter from the Los Angeles Times to visit her convalescence. She receives the press while lying in bed, propped up against a mountain of satin pillows. The room is filled with flowers sent by well-wishers. She wears a high-neck nightgown, deliberately chosen to obscure the thickening of her waist. She speaks in a whisper, coughing gently into a handkerchief. She tells the reporter she is too weak to work, too fragile for the lights. The reporter scribbles down every word, describing her as a fading lily. The story runs the next day. The alibi is set. Weeks later, she boards a train for New York, then a ship to Europe. The Grand Tour is the official cover story, a long vacation to restore her health in the fresh air of England and France. The press photographs her waving from the railing of the ocean liner, a heavy coat buttoned to her chin despite the summer heat. But the Europe trip is a diversion. Loretta and her mother return to the United States quietly, slipping back into California like fugitives. They do not return to Hollywood. They drive to a small, nondescript rental house at 2210 Oceanfront Walk in Venice, California. It is a world away from the manicured lawns of Beverly Hills. Here, the air smells of salt and rotting kelp. The neighbors are fishermen and oil workers who do not read Variety. While Loretta paces the floorboards of her seaside prison, hiding her swelling belly under loose shifts, a different scene is unfolding just 15 miles away. The flash bulbs are popping at the Trocadero nightclub. Carole Lombard is on Clark Gable's arm. She is radiant, wearing a silk gown that clings to a silhouette, unburdened by secrets. They are the golden couple laughing for the cameras, drinking champagne and living the public romance that Loretta can only dream of. The contrast is brutal. While Young hid in secrecy, Clark Gable and Carole Lombard became Hollywood's golden couple. They lived a very public romance, unaware of the child growing just miles away. For the next few months, Loretta Young ceases to exist. She becomes a prisoner in the rental house. She paces the small rooms, the floorboards creaking under her weight. Her body, once her fortune, is now a liability she must hide, even from the milkman. She reads scripts she cannot film. She listens to the radio, hearing reports of Clark Gable attending premieres with Carole Lombard. He is everywhere, on billboards and newspapers in the collective dream of America. She is nowhere. Gladys, her mother, manages the logistics. She finds a doctor willing to make house calls and keep his mouth shut. She arranges for a nurse. She pays in cash. They burn letters. They keep the curtains drawn during the day. The house becomes a capsule of silence, waiting for the inevitable. November 6, 1935. The labor begins in the early hours of the morning. There is no rush to the hospital. A hospital record is a public document, and a public document is a death sentence for her career. She must give birth in the rental house, on a bed stripped of its fancy linens, with only the doctor, the nurse, and her mother present. The pain is physical, but the terror is professional. If she dies in childbirth, a very real possibility in 1935, the autopsy will reveal everything. The headlines will scream the truth over her grave. She fights through the contractions in silence, biting down on a towel to keep from crying out loud enough for the neighbors to hear. At 8:15 a.m., the child is born. A girl. She is healthy. She has blue eyes and a tuft of blonde hair. Loretta holds the baby for the first time. The exhaustion washes over her, replaced by a fierce, terrifying surge of maternal instinct. She names her Judith. On the birth certificate, the father's name is left blank. The mother is listed as Loretta Young, a thin veil over the truth. For a few weeks, the house in Venice becomes a home. Loretta nurses the baby. She learns the rhythm of the child's breathing. For a moment, she allows herself to imagine a life where she is just a mother, not a movie star. She looks at Judith's face, searching for signs of the father. The baby's ears are small, folded against her head. There is no resemblance yet, just innocence. But the clock is ticking. MGM expects Loretta back. The illness excuse has an expiration date. Her bank account is draining. The studio system does not tolerate long absences. The separation is planned with military precision. Loretta cannot keep Judith, not yet. To bring an illegitimate baby back to Hollywood would be suicide. She must return alone. She must pretend the last 9 months never happened. A wet nurse is hired. An arrangement is made with a baby broker, a woman who runs a private nursery for problem children. Judith will be sent there. Loretta will go back to her mansion. The morning of the departure is cold and gray. Loretta packs her bags. She dresses in a tailored suit, cinching her waist tight again. She stands over the crib. She picks up Judith, smelling the milk and the powder on her skin. She kisses the baby's forehead, her tears falling onto the blanket. Then she hands her daughter to a stranger. She walks out the door of the rental house. She gets into the car. She does not look back. As the car drives away, putting distance between the mother and the child, Loretta Young puts on her sunglasses. She checks her lipstick in the rearview mirror. The saint is back. The mother is gone. She returns to Hollywood the next day. She walks onto the MGM lot, smiling, telling everyone she feels refreshed from her travels. She accepts the scripts. She steps under the hot lights, and somewhere in a dark nursery across town, a baby cries for a mother who has just become an image on a screen. The morning Loretta Young leaves the rental house in Venice, California, the sky is a flat, bruised gray. It is late 1935. The Santa Ana winds have died down, leaving the air stagnant and smelling of brine and wet sand. Inside the small bungalow, the silence is absolute. The crib in the corner is empty. The baby, Judy, has been moved an hour earlier, handed over to a wet nurse whose face Loretta barely looked at for fear of memorizing it. The transaction was swift, conducted in the shadows of the hallway, a bundle of blankets exchanged for an envelope of cash. Loretta stands in the center of the stripped room. She checks her reflection in the hallway mirror. The woman looking back is thin, her face drawn, her eyes hollowed out by sleeplessness and the physical trauma of a secret birth. She applies a thick layer of foundation to mask the pallor. She paints her lips a dark, defiant red. She puts on her sunglasses. She walks out the door, leaving the key under the mat. She gets into her car and drives east, away from the ocean, away from the child, and back toward the city that owns her. She drives straight to the gates of Metro Goldwyn Mayer. The guard recognizes the car. He waves her through. As she passes under the archway, the atmosphere changes. The air here smells of ozone, fresh paint, and expensive tobacco. This is a kingdom with its own laws, its own police force, and its own god, Louis B. Mayer. Loretta parks her car and walks to the administration building. She holds her head high. She's no longer the frightened girl on the train. She is a soldier returning to the front lines. She walks into Mayer's office. The desk is enormous, a polished expanse of mahogany designed to make anyone sitting on the other side feel small. Mayer looks up. He assesses her like a piece of livestock. He looks at her waistline. He looks at her clear eyes. He nods. The illness is over. The exhaustion is cured. The asset is liquid again. He hands her a script. Loretta takes it. Her hands do not shake. She has survived the first act. But the survival comes with a price. The studio puts her back to work immediately. She is cast in The Crusades and Ramona. The days are 14 hours long. The lights are blindingly hot. Between takes, while the crew adjusts the boom microphones and the lighting rigs, Loretta sits in her canvas chair, staring at the dust motes dancing in the beams of light. Her body aches with the phantom sensation of holding a child. Her breasts are bound tight beneath the period costumes to hide the lingering signs of motherhood. The physical pain is a constant rhythmic reminder of the baby girl lying in a stranger's house 10 miles away. Loretta learns to compartmentalize. When the director calls action, she smiles. She cries on cue. She flirts. She radiates the ethereal purity that the audience demands. When he calls cut, she turns to stone. She becomes a ghost haunting her own life. The months bleed into 1936. The secret holds, but it is fragile. Rumors are a currency in Hollywood, and inflation is high. There are whispers in the beauty parlors and the back rooms of nightclubs. People notice the timing of her illness. They notice the way she avoids questions about her trip to Europe. To silence the noise, Loretta and her mother Gladys execute the next phase of the plan. They must move the child. A private wet nurse is too risky. Servants talk and neighbors have eyes. Judy needs to disappear into a system where names are replaced by numbers. They choose St. Elizabeth's Infant Hospital in San Francisco. It is a fortress of brick and Catholicism, run by the Daughters of Charity. It is a place where shameful secrets are kept in filing cabinets locked with iron keys. Loretta makes the drive north alone. She wears a headscarf and dark glasses. She registers the child under the name William, a clerical error or a deliberate obfuscation that remains on the original intake forms. She hands her daughter to a nun. The room is cold, smelling of boiled vegetables and floor wax. The nun does not ask questions. She takes the child. Loretta stands there, her arms suddenly light, her heart heavy as lead. She turns and walks away. She drives back to Los Angeles in silence, the radio off, the sound of the tires on the asphalt the only noise in the world. For the next 19 months, Judy lives in the orphanage. She is a toddler now. She learns to walk on linoleum floors. She learns to eat from metal trays. She learns that crying does not always bring comfort. She is one of dozens of children, all dressed in identical white smocks, all waiting. Loretta visits when she can, but the visits are sporadic and terrifying. She must sneak in. She cannot be seen holding the child too affectionately. She sits in a visitor's room watching Judy play with wooden blocks. She wants to scream. She wants to grab her daughter and run out the door. But the contract with MGM is a chain around her neck. She kisses Judy on the head, smelling the institutional soap on her skin, and leaves. Every departure cuts a little deeper. Every time she leaves, Judy cries less, having learned the brutal lesson that the lady in the nice coat always goes away. By 1937, the strain is becoming unbearable. Loretta is 24 years old. She is rich, famous, and utterly miserable. She sits in the parlor of her Sunset Boulevard mansion with Gladys. The house is too big. The silence is too loud. Gladys smokes her cigarette, her eyes narrowing through the haze. She sees her daughter breaking. She knows that if Loretta breaks, the money stops. The fame stops. They need a solution. They need to bring the child home. But they cannot simply produce a toddler and claim it is Loretta's. The math doesn't work. The press will destroy them. The plan to bring the child home is not just a family matter, it is a studio mandate. The phone rings in the Sunset Mansion. It is Howard Strickling, the legendary fixer for MGM. Strickling is the man who makes DUs disappear, who bribes district attorneys, who arranges marriages to hide homosexuality. He does not ask, he instructs. The public has a short memory, Loretta. Strickling's voice is cold, detached, coming through the receiver like a verdict. But they can count. You can't just show up with a toddler. We need a narrative. We need a show. Strickling issued a command with the full authority of the studio police. He made it clear. The deception must be absolute. No paper trails, no witnesses. The entire operation had a single objective: to protect MGM's stock price. It is Strickling who orchestrates the logistics of the adoption. He treats the child not as a human being, but as a continuity error in a script that needs to be fixed. He advises Gladys on the timing. He suggests the press release. He is the architect of the lie. The studio will support the adoption story he promises, but only if the deception is absolute. If Loretta slips, if the mask falls for even a second, MGM will destroy her faster than they made her. The adoption is not an act of charity. It is a contract signed in invisible ink. Gladys proposes the masterstroke. It is a plan so cynical, so theatrical, that it could only have been born in Hollywood. Loretta will adopt a child. She will play the role of the benevolent lonely star, opening her heart to an orphan. But to make it believable, to throw the hounds off the scent, she cannot just adopt one child. That would draw too much scrutiny to the child's features. She must adopt two. The logic is cold. Two children creates a chaotic, heartwarming narrative. It dilutes the focus. It makes Loretta look like a saint, not a mother hiding a sin. They will find a decoy child, another little girl of roughly the same age. They will bring both girls home. And then, when the dust settles, they will return the decoy and keep Judy. It is human trafficking dressed up as charity. Loretta agrees. She contacts the Children's Home Society. She puts on her best performance. She meets with social workers. She talks about her deep spiritual need to be a mother. She cries. The social workers are charmed. Who wouldn't want to give a child to Loretta Young? They approve the application. Loretta walks through the rows of cribs at the agency. She points to a little girl, a blonde child, frail and quiet. Her name is Jane. Loretta takes her. Jane is the prop. Jane is the shield. Then Loretta travels to St. Elizabeth's in San Francisco. She arranges the paperwork. She adopts Judy. The nuns play along. The records are falsified or obscured. Loretta brings both children back to Los Angeles. The nursery in the mansion is finally full. It is decorated with expensive lace and imported toys. But it is a stage set. Loretta invites the press. The most dangerous predator in Hollywood, Luella Parsons, is given the exclusive. Luella arrives in her chauffeured car, notebook in hand. She is a woman who can smell a lie at 50 paces, but she is also a woman who depends on access. Loretta greets her at the door, wearing a simple white dress. Looking every inch the Madonna, she leads Luella to the nursery. "Look, Luella," Loretta whispers, pointing to the 2 cribs. "God has answered my prayers." Luella looks. She sees 2 toddlers. She sees Loretta's tear-filled eyes. She does not see the resemblance between the child on the left and Clark Gable. She sees a headline. She writes it down. Loretta Young adopts 2 children. The story runs across the country. The public reaction is ecstatic. Loretta Young is a hero. She is a saint who saves unwanted babies. The letters of praise flood the studio mailroom. The deception is a complete success, but the tragedy of the decoy must play out. Little Jane lives in the mansion for a few months. She is dressed in fine clothes. She is fed well, but she is not the bloodline. She is not the secret. As the weeks pass and the public accepts Loretta as a mother, Jane's purpose expires. The narrative needs to be streamlined. Loretta tells the social workers that it is too much, that she can only handle 1 child. She tells friends that the other child didn't fit in. The car arrives to take Jane away. The little girl is packed up. The toys she touched are left behind. She is driven back to the orphanage, returned like a costume that didn't quite fit the lighting. She disappears from history, a nameless casualty of a movie star's reputation. Loretta watches the car vanish around the bend from her upstairs window. She does not wave. She simply draws the heavy velvet curtains, plunging the room back into a calculated shadow. From that moment on, the name Jane is never spoken in the Young household again. There are no photos kept, no inquiries made. The child is deleted from the narrative as efficiently as a line of dialogue cut in the editing room. The saint has performed her miracle. The prop is no longer required. Loretta turns away from the window. Judy is sitting on the floor playing with a doll, unaware that she is now the sole survivor of her mother's script. Loretta walks over and picks her up. She is safe. The lie has worked. But while Loretta constructs her fortress of silence in Holmby Hills, a different kind of tragedy is unfolding in Encino. The year is 1939. The ranch that Clark Gable and Carole Lombard share is a 20-acre sanctuary of aggressive normalcy. It is designed to be the antithesis of Hollywood, a sanctuary of dust and sunlight where the air smells of alfalfa and manure rather than grease paint and desperation. To the fan magazines, this is the House of Two Gables, the ultimate proof that the king and the screwball queen are just simple folk at heart. They pose for Life magazine in denim and plaid, Gable on a tractor, Lombard feeding the chickens with a cigarette dangling from her lip. It is the perfect American tableau, a domestic paradise that the public devours with insatiable hunger. But inside the main house, beneath the rough-hewn beams and the hunting trophies, the air is thin with unvoiced tension. The rustic furniture witnesses a silent, grinding tragedy that no amount of public adoration can fix. At 32, Carole Lombard is the highest-paid actress in the United States. She is beautiful, beloved, and ferociously intelligent. She has rewritten the rules of comedy, turning pratfalls into high art. But in the quiet of the ranch, she is waging a private war against her own biology, and she is losing. The master bedroom is a shrine to fertility disguised as a sleeping quarter. On the bedside table next to the scripts and the overflowing ashtrays are thermometers and charts. Carole tracks her cycle with the precision of a stockbroker analyzing a crashing market. She knows the exact window of ovulation down to the hour. She knows the temperature of her body down to the decimal point. But every month, the result is the same. The window closes, the temperature drops, the blood comes, and with it comes a depression so black and so deep that it terrifies the servants who have to clean up the shattered glass and listen to the weeping behind the locked door. She has seen the best specialists in Los Angeles. The medical science of the late 1930s regarding infertility is crude, a mixture of folklore and invasive surgery. They talk to her about tipped uteruses and nervous dispositions. They prescribe rest. They prescribe foul-tasting tonics. They perform stretching procedures that are agonizing and humiliating. Carole endures it all. She lies on the cold tables, her feet in stirrups, staring at the ceiling, bargaining with God. It is a cruel cosmic joke. Loretta Young, the sinner in the eyes of the church, conceived a child from a single illicit encounter on a train. She has the fertility that Carole would trade her soul for. Carole Lombard, the lawful wife, the woman who does everything right, the charts, the doctors, the prayers, is left with an empty womb. Every month the blood comes, and every month the shadow of Loretta's secret child grows longer across Carole's happiness. It is not just jealousy, it is a primal defeat. Clark Gable loves her. There is no doubt about that in the minds of their friends. He calls her Ma, a nickname that is both affectionate and deeply revealing of what he needs from her. He relies on her chaotic energy to balance his own moody, taciturn nature. She is the noise that drowns out his silence. But Carole is not blind. She possesses the terrifying intuition of a woman who knows her husband has secrets. She sees the way he looks at children. She sees the ghost of a father in his eyes when he doesn't think she is watching. And she knows deep down that the shadow of Loretta Young falls long across the Encino Ranch. The adopted daughter, Judy, is now a growing child, being raised in the Catholic aristocracy of Holmby Hills, just a few miles away. The gossip has not died. It has merely gone underground. It is whispered in the makeup chairs at Paramount and the locker rooms at the Lakeside Golf Club. Have you seen the ears on Loretta's kid? Carole has heard it. She has likely seen the photos in the papers. The little girl with the wide-set eyes and the shy smile that mirrors Clark's own. She does not confront Clark. To confront him would be to break the spell of their marriage. It would force him to admit to a past betrayal, and it would force her to admit to her own inadequacy. So she channels her anxiety into motion. She becomes manic. She renovates the house. She throws parties that last until dawn. She swears like a sailor and drinks the stuntman under the table. She is the life of the party, but her eyes are frantic. Then the world breaks. On December 7th, 1941, the Japanese bomb Pearl Harbor. The war that has been consuming Europe finally arrives in California. For Carole, the war is a salvation. It gives her a target. It gives her a reason to run from the failure of the nursery. She throws herself into the war effort with a zealotry that borders on self-destruction. She is named the honorary colonel of the bond drive. She is no longer just an actress. She is a patriot. In January 1942, she is scheduled to go on a tour of the Midwest to sell war bonds. It is a grueling itinerary: Indianapolis, Salt Lake City, Kansas City. Clark stays behind. He is filming Somewhere I'll Find You with Lana Turner. The title is ironic. The separation terrifies Carole. She is jealous of Lana Turner, the sweater girl, who is young, fertile, and staring into her husband's eyes on a soundstage all day. Before she leaves, she and Clark fight. It is a bitter, ugly argument, fueled by insecurity and the unspoken pressure of the empty nursery. She leaves the ranch in a fury, storming out the door without a proper goodbye, leaving a silence in the house that feels like a premonition. The tour is a triumph. In Indianapolis, her home state, she raises $2 million in a single day. She stands on podiums in the freezing winter wind, wearing a fur coat and a smile that dazzles the crowds. She signs autographs until her hand cramps. She shakes thousands of hands. She is electric, but underneath the adrenaline, she is exhausted. She misses Clark. She wants to go home. She wants to fix the fight. By January 15th, 1942, the tour is over. Carole, her mother Elizabeth Peters, and MGM press agent Otto Winkler are at the airport in Indianapolis. They are scheduled to take a train back to Los Angeles. It is the sensible choice. The weather is atrocious, snow, fog, and low visibility across the Rockies. But the train is slow. It will take days. Carole wants to be back in Encino tonight. She wants to sleep in her own bed. She wants to apologize to Clark. Otto Winkler begs her to take the train. He is terrified of flying in winter. Elizabeth Peters, a superstitious woman, has a bad feeling. She consults her numerology charts. They spell danger. Carole laughs. She pulls a coin from her purse, a silver quarter. "Heads we fly," she says, her voice ringing out in the terminal. "Tails we take the train." She flips the coin. It spins in the fluorescent light, a blur of silver. It lands on the linoleum floor. It spins, wobbles, and settles. "Heads we fly," Carole says. She grabs her bag. She is triumphant. She has beaten the odds. She sends a telegram to Clark. "Paps, I'm coming home. Love, May." They board TWA Flight 3, a DC-3 Sky Club. The plane is crowded. There are soldiers on board, young men heading to the Pacific Theater. Carole charms them. She sits in the cabin, smoking cigarettes, chatting with the pilot. The plane makes a stop in Albuquerque, then Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, the sun is setting. The desert is turning a bruised purple. The pilot is advised of turbulence over the mountains. The war has forced a blackout of the beacons. The guiding lights on the peaks are turned off to prevent enemy bombers from using them for navigation. The plane will be flying blind into the darkness. Back in Encino, Clark Gable is preparing a homecoming. He has bought Carole's favorite flowers. He has arranged a steak dinner, complete with the trimmings she loves. He is pacing the living room, checking his watch. The fight is forgotten. He misses her. He's ready to try again. Maybe this month will be different. Maybe the war will wait. At 7:07 p.m., TWA Flight 3 takes off from Las Vegas. The engines roar, lifting the heavy metal bird into the night air. The plane banks, aiming for the pass that leads to Los Angeles. But the pilot makes a fatal error. In the darkness, without the beacons, he miscalculates his altitude. He thinks he is clearing the ridge. He is not. 23 minutes after takeoff, the DC-3 slams into the sheer granite face of Potosi Mountain at 170 miles per hour. There is no time to scream. There is no time to pray. The impact is catastrophic. The plane disintegrates. The fuel tanks explode, turning the snowy mountainside into an inferno. The sound of the crash echoes through the canyons like a thunderclap. Then silence. Absolute freezing silence. At the ranch, the steak is getting cold. The candles are burning down. Gable pours another drink. He calls the airport. The flight is delayed, they tell him. He waits. He calls again. We've lost contact. The phone rings at MGM. Howard Strickling picks up. The voice on the other end is grim. Strickling drives to the ranch. He finds Gable standing in the driveway, staring at the gate. Strickling gets out of the car. He doesn't have to speak. Gable sees it in his face. "Where is she?" Gable asks. His voice is a growl. "We have to go to Las Vegas," Strickling says. The drive to Nevada is a blur of speed and terror. Gable sits in the passenger seat, chain-smoking, his hands shaking. He is bargaining now. Maybe she's hurt. Maybe she's stranded. She's a fighter. She survived the hurricane in '38. She can survive this. They arrive in Las Vegas. A search party is assembling. The sheriff looks at Gable. The king is gone. In his place is a desperate, broken man in a leather jacket. "I'm going up there," Gable says. "You can't, Mr. Gable," the sheriff says gently. "It's a vertical climb. There's 5 feet of snow. It's impossible." Gable tries to push past him. Strickling holds him back. "Let the professionals go, Clark. Please." Gable waits at the bottom of the mountain in a trailer. He waits for hours. He drinks whiskey that tastes like ash. He listens to the wind howling down from the peaks. It is the same wind that is currently blowing over the wreckage of his life. The search party returns at dawn. Their faces are gray. One of them walks over to Strickling and whispers. Strickling nods. He walks over to Gable. He puts a hand on his shoulder. "There are no survivors," he says. Gable does not cry. He collapses inward. It is as if the skeleton has been removed from his body. He sits on a crate, staring at the dirt. A deputy approaches him. He is holding something in a small cloth. He opens it. Inside is a ruby clip. It is diamond-encrusted, shaped like a heart. Gable gave it to Carole for Christmas. It is scorched, bent by the heat of the fire, but intact. Gable takes the clip. He closes his hand around it. The sharp edges cut into his palm. He bleeds, but he does not feel it. The bodies are brought down on mules. The recovery is gruesome. The fire was intense. Identification is difficult. But Gable demands to see her. He needs to know. They advise against it. He insists. He goes into the makeshift morgue. He comes out minutes later, his face the color of old paper. He has aged 20 years in 20 minutes. He returns to Los Angeles not as a husband, but as a widower. The funeral is held at Forest Lawn. It is a spectacle. The world mourns the screwball queen. But Gable is catatonic. He stands by the grave, flanked by Red Skelton and Spencer Tracy. He wears dark glasses to hide eyes that have seen the end of the world. And miles away in the quiet nursery of the Holmby Hills mansion, Loretta Young hears the news on the radio. She is holding Judy. The child is 7 now. Her ears are healing from the surgery. The bandages are off, leaving faint pink scars behind the lobes. Judy is playing with a doll, oblivious to the tragedy. Loretta looks at her daughter. She feels a complex, suffocating mixture of emotions. Grief? Yes. She knew Carole. She respected her. Relief? God help her, yes. The rival is gone. The woman who held the rightful place at Clark's side is dead. Guilt? Overwhelming. Loretta looks at Judy's corrected ears. She looks at the newspaper on the table with the headline, "Lombard Dead." She realizes the terrifying calculus of God. Carole Lombard, the lawful wife, died in a ball of fire trying to rush home to conceive a child. Loretta Young, the sinner, sits in a mansion with the child she never wanted to acknowledge. The rival is gone. The threat is extinguished. Loretta pulls the curtains closed. She has won the war, but the victory is cold. She has the child. She has the secret. And now, thanks to the mountain, she has the silence. Now begins the long, slow gaslighting of Judy Lewis. There are unspoken rules in the house. Judy is not allowed to ask about her biological parents. If she brings it up, Loretta's face hardens, her eyes turning to ice. "It doesn't matter," she snaps. "I am your mother now." But the truth is written on the child's face. By the time Judy is 4, the resemblance to the king of Hollywood is becoming a billboard. She has his wide-set eyes, his mischievous smile, and most dangerously, his ears. They stand out from her head at a distinct angle, a genetic signature that no amount of ribbons or bonnets can hide. One afternoon, Loretta hosts a garden party. The elite of Hollywood are there. Judy runs out onto the lawn, escaping the nursery, the ribbon meant to pin back her ears trailing in her hand. She runs past a director who worked with Gable. He stops mid-sentence, watching the little girl's profile. He turns to his companion and lowers his voice. "Well," he says, swirling his drink, "I guess the rumors are true. That's Gable's kid if I've ever seen one." Loretta is standing 10 feet away. She hears him. She doesn't turn around, but the blood drains from her face. The panic that has been simmering for 4 years boils over. She realizes the lie is failing. That night, she makes a decision that strips away the veneer of the saint to reveal the ruthless operator underneath. She picks up the phone and summons a plastic surgeon directly to the nursery. "I want them fixed," she tells him. "They stick out. It bothers her." It is a lie, but a necessary one. A few weeks later, the 7-year-old girl is taken to a hospital. She is frightened by the smell of ether and the masks of the doctors. Loretta stands by the wall, arms crossed, her face a mask of grim determination. Judy is put under anesthesia. The scalpel cuts into the cartilage behind her ears, surgically altering her appearance to erase the evidence of her conception. When Judy wakes up, her head is bandaged and throbbing. She cries, confused and in pain. Loretta sits by the bed, smoothing the sheets but avoiding her daughter's eyes. "It's for the best, darling," she says. "You'll look so much prettier now." The child has no vote. To protect her career, Young ordered cosmetic surgery to pin back Judy's ears, hoping to hide the physical resemblance to Clark Gable. Gable does not return to the ranch. He cannot bear the silence. He joins the Army Air Forces. He is 41, too old for combat, but he demands to go. He wants to die. He flies combat missions over Germany in a B-17. He has a death wish written on his face. He wants a German bullet to do what the mountain did to Carole. He keeps the ruby clip in a locket around his neck next to his dog tags. But death does not take him. He survives the war. He returns to Hollywood in 1945, a ghost in a leather jacket. The spark is gone. The smirk is gone. He drinks heavily. He dates women who look like Carole, but he never marries them. He retreats to the ranch, living among the ghosts of the chickens and the horses. And still, he does not call Loretta. He does not ask to see Judy. The war ends. The 1940s bleed into the 1950s. Judy Lewis grows up. She is a teenager now. She is tall, striking, with a smile that unnerves people. She attends Marymount High School. She is the daughter of the famous Loretta Young. She is privileged. She is loved in a stifling, controlled way. But she is haunted by a void. She does not know who she is. She looks in the mirror and sees a stranger. She sees the scars behind her ears and wonders why they are there. She asks about her father. Loretta tells her he died in the war, or that he was a businessman who tragically passed away. The story changes, but the vagueness remains. Judy feels the lie in the architecture of the house. She feels it in the way her grandmother looks at her. She feels it in the way family friends stop talking when she enters the room. She is a puzzle piece that doesn't fit the box. Then comes the day that changes the texture of the silence. It is 1950. Judy is 15. She is home from school wearing her uniform, a plaid skirt and a white blouse. The house is unusually quiet. The The servants are gone. Loretta is in the living room arranging flowers. She looks nervous. Her hands are trembling. "Judy," she says, her voice tight, "we have a visitor today." "Who is it?" Judy asks. "A friend," Loretta says, "an old friend. I want you to be polite. I want you to be perfect." The doorbell rings. It is not the chime of a bell. It is the tolling of a clock. Loretta walks to the door. She opens it. Framed in the doorway, silhouetted against the bright California sun, is a man. He is older now. His hair is gray at the temples. His face is lined with grief and gravity. But the presence is unmistakable. It is the king. Clark Gable steps into the foyer. He smells of tobacco and expensive cologne. He looks at Loretta, and for a second the history between them, the train, the snow, the lie, passes in a look. Then he turns his eyes to the girl standing by the staircase. He looks at Judy. He sees the height. He sees the eyes. He sees the ears, now pinned back but still unmistakably his. He sees the daughter he abandoned to save a stock price. Judy freezes. She knows who he is. Everyone knows who he is, but she doesn't know who he is to her. "Hello," Clark Gable says. His voice is a deep rumble, familiar from 1,000 newsreels. "Hello, Mr. Gable," Judy says. She curtsies. He walks toward her. The space between them is charged with 15 years of lies. He stops a foot away. He looks down at her. He doesn't smile. He studies her face like a map he lost a long time ago. "You're tall," he says. "Yes, sir," Judy whispers. He reaches out. His hand, the hand that held the ruby clip, the hand that steered the bomber, touches her shoulder. It is heavy. He doesn't hug her. He doesn't weep. He is a man from a generation that does not weep. He sits down on the sofa and pats the cushion next to him. "Sit down," he says. "Tell me about your life." And for the next hour, the king and his daughter sit in the living room of the woman who lied to them both. They talk about horses, they talk about school, they talk about nothing, and they talk about everything. Loretta watches from the doorway, a sentinel guarding the bomb she built. When he stands up to leave, the sun is setting. The shadows are long. He walks to the door, he stops, he turns back to Judy. He looks at her one last time, memorizing the face he will never acknowledge to the world. He walks back to her. He leans down, he kisses her on the forehead. "Be a good girl," he says. Then he walks out the door. He gets into his car. He drives away. He never comes back. Judy stands in the foyer, touching her forehead. The spot where he kissed her burns. She doesn't understand why, but she feels like she has just lost something she never knew she had. She turns to her mother. "Why did he come?" Judy asks. Loretta turns away. She picks up a vase of flowers. Her knuckles are white. "He was just passing through," Loretta says. "Just an old friend passing through." The door closes. The lock clicks. The secret is safe again, but the cracks in the foundation are widening. The girl is growing up, and the truth is, a plant that grows best in the dark. The silence holds for decades, a dam holding back a river of grief. It is not until 1966, when Judy is 31 years old, that the dam breaks. In a tearful confrontation in the living room, Loretta finally admits the truth. "Yes, you are my daughter, and Clark Gable was your father." But the admission comes with a padlock. Loretta demands continued silence. The saint cannot fall. But truth has its own momentum. In 1994, Judy Lewis publishes her memoir, Uncommon Knowledge. She steps out of the shadows and claims her identity. The world is shocked, but the reaction from the mother is devastating. Loretta Young, now an old woman living in Palm Springs, saw the book strictly as an unforgivable act of betrayal. She refuses to speak to Judy. She publicly denies the story. For the last 3 years of Loretta's life, the mother and daughter are strangers again, separated by the same pride that built the lie in 1935. Loretta Young dies in August 2000. It is only then, in a posthumous biography authorized by her estate, that the confession is made public. The final irony is complete. The saint goes to her grave clinging to the myth, while the daughter she sacrificed is left to pick up the pieces of a history that was stolen from her. Carole Lombard died in a flash of fire on a mountain. Clark Gable died of a heart attack broken by grief. Loretta Young died in her sleep, surrounded by awards, but estranged from her own blood. And Judy Lewis, the girl with the surgical scars behind her ears, is the only one left standing, a living testament to the fact that in Hollywood, the most expensive production was never a movie. It was the life they pretended to live. The story of Loretta Young and Carole Lombard remains a cautionary tale of the studio era. Both women were forced to navigate a system that demanded perfection at any cost. It stands as a testament to the immense pressure placed on women in Hollywood to maintain a public lie, often at the expense of their private reality. The saint and the screwball queen are gone, leaving behind only the truth of what it cost to be a woman in a man's world.